study in dealing with the timeline of end-time events as we come to the fourth major event on our timeline, and that involves the tribulation without the church. Last time we were together, we looked at the rapture of the church, how the church was caught up. Well, this particular event happens after the rapture. When the church is gone, the tribulation begins. It's a 7-year period of time called the Great Tribulation. In Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 7, it's called a time of Jacob's trouble. In Daniel 9:27, it's the 70th week of Daniel. It is a period of time when God pours out His wrath on a God-rejecting world, as mentioned in Revelation chapters 6 through 18, with the seal judgments, the trumpet judgments, and the bowl judgments. Now, as we take a look at this period of time called the tribulation, soon as this event occurs, the Antichrist comes onto the scene and brings a pseudo-peace. You can imagine the hysteria that the world will have in realizing that millions of people are gone. They're just vanished, if you will. So the Antichrist, he comes onto the scene, according to 1 John 2:18, and he establishes a pseudo-peace. According to Daniel's chapter 7, verse 8, he's called the little horn. In 2 Thessalonians 2:3, he's called the man of sin, the son of perdition. You say, well, Clark, how does he bring about this peace? Well, according to the end of verse 27 of Daniel chapter 9, it says he establishes a covenant with the many. Now, most scholars believe the covenant that he establishes is with the Jews. It's a peace treaty to build them a temple. The temple that he's going to be built is actually mentioned in Revelation chapter 11. It's called the Tribulation Temple. So this temple will be constructed by the Antichrist. You say, but wait a minute, Clark. I've always heard that the Jews are waiting for the Messiah to build them a temple. Well, you're absolutely correct. The Jews are waiting for the Christ to build them a temple. In fact, I've, on more than one occasion, have been able to sit down with Rabbi Chaim Rickman, who is the director of the Temple Institute, and he assures me they have everything they need to build the temple. They're just waiting for the Messiah. You say, well, what will cause the Jews to think that the Antichrist is really the Christ? Well, that's a good question. In 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 9, Paul said that this Antichrist will come with the power of Satan, with lying, signs, and wonders, and deception. So apparently he's going to deceive the Jews into thinking that he is in fact the Christ, the Messiah. You say, well, wait a minute, Clark. On the Temple Mount right now, there's two very important Muslim structures. The Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is the third holiest site in Islam. You have Mecca, Medina, and then the Al-Aqsa. And you also have the Golden Dome, or the Dome of Omar, which really is not a mosque. It's a monument to the Night Ride of Muhammad. Don't those structures have to be removed? No, they do not. Just north of the Golden Dome is a little structure called the Dome of the Spirits, or the Dome of the Books. Now, I've stood there many, many times, and I have walked it off. There is ample room on the Temple Mount today for the Jews to build them that tribulation temple that's mentioned in Revelation chapter 11. In fact, in Revelation chapter 11, verse 2, we're told that the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa will stay where they're at because that is called the court of the Gentiles. And if you were to go to Israel today and ask any Orthodox Jew who would build them a temple, they will very quickly tell you it will be the Messiah, the Christ, the anointed one of God. So everything seemingly will come into play, and he'll bring a pseudo-peace. However, in the middle of that 7-year period of time, 3.5 years, 42 months, 1,260 days, we have what's called the abomination of desolation. It's mentioned in Matthew chapter 24, verse 15, and again in Daniel chapter 9, verse 27. It's when the Antichrist goes into the temple, claims to be God, and demands to be worshipped as God, according to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4. So he now takes the place of God, which is the abomination of desolation. He also establishes a one-world governmental and monetary system. Boy, does that sound familiar. Look, I do a lot of traveling, and you do too, most likely. And I have seen everywhere I go this round blue dot that says one world. And we know for the last several years, we've been inching that way further and further toward a one world government, a one world society, which is mentioned in Revelation chapter 17, where the Antichrist will come out of this seventh world empire made up of a 10-nation confederacy and establish the eighth and final world empire. But he'll also establish a one world religious system, according to Revelation chapter 13. Now, for many years, scholars believe that this one world religious system was in fact the Roman Catholic Church because of the 7 hills that are in Rome. I visited them. They're there even to this day. But I personally believe it is not the Roman Catholic Church. I personally believe that it is Islam for 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is found in Revelation chapter 20, verse 4. You see, everybody during the tribulation who does not receive the mark or worship the beast that's mentioned in Revelation 13:17 will have their heads cut off. Question: which religious group loves to run around cutting people's heads off? Yeah, the Muslims, of course. It's one of their favorite evangelism tools. But there's a second reason, and that's found in Zechariah chapter 5, verses 5 through 11. The prophet Zechariah tells us that these 2 evils, presumably the one world government and the one world religious system, will be put into a basket, flown to the plain of Shinar, which is in modern-day Iraq, which is 99.9% Muslim, and there the headquarters will be established. So this deals with this tribulation period of time, a time when God pours His wrath out on a God-rejecting world. And through this episode, we can see the importance of, well, not being left behind, to come into faith in Christ so we can be caught up into the clouds and to be with Him, so we don't go through this period of time called the tribulation. Well, next time we're together, we'll pick up our next major event on the timeline of end-time events. So God bless you all.